I remember the feeling of defiance sit at the pit of my stomach. The blood rushing through my skull as I desperately cried for my voice to be heard throughout the hundreds of women who stood beside me. Being swallowed by a gender-specific culture does not make much of someone who wants to stand out amid the sexism. As if holding a picket sign would be enough for the injustices the world served my gender. And why was I being punished for being a girl? I refused to stay at home and aid the men around me just to be a simple housewife. No propaganda will make me believe such. I, Miss Paul, will take credit for the suffragette movement of a hunger strike. I truthfully don't believe I should be punished for doing such. I do not regret my conduct and would be willing to repeat my actions if needed. November 9th shouldn't be a significant day, but it is to me. I was arrested on a day for standing up against a misogynistic culture called Congress. I was interrupting the Lord Mayor's banquet in Guildhall, disguising myself as a scrub woman. Me and my fellow suffragette sentence was deemed to be 30 days of hard labor in Holloway Prison. Although my stubbornness overcame me, my prison life did not consist of chains and uniforms. It consisted of me being tied to tables and chairs with tubes down my nose to be force-fed while tears escaped my face. Wardresses would be holding my body down, restraining me from any movement. My mouth would be pried open with instruments in order for the doctor to feed me. I did no work on my stay and strike. I was stubborn in my morale, and nothing would change that. I consider being imprisoned a complete injustice in my lifetime. But that injustice means nothing to me if that paved the road to the suffrage right. World War I has indeed ended. Throughout this time of political and economic recuperation, social tensions between women and the government have begun to resurface. Before the war, we started to make our calls for our freedom and demanded changes to how we were treated and portrayed by society. We were fighting for the change that would soon give our future daughters, granddaughters, and on the life that we had dreamed of ourselves. The gender-spherical world then had already aided others in the right of social acceptance. Other minority groups had already gained the right to vote. In 1870, the 15th Amendment about African rights were brought to light by Congress. Multiple bills have been passed giving minorities the right of suffrage. Of course, all the rights besides women. This was brought to light by the proclamation of the 15th Amendment. This bill had proclaimed, "The citizen's right to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." Women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were not afraid to speak up about the severity of this issue. This was a major weakening point of established social norms, and these women thought it was our time to rise against the systematic patriarchy we have succumbed ourselves to for hundreds of years. But when the war began, we put down our pickets and went off to fill the gaps in assembly lines, while our boys were off fighting in the trenches. We sacrificed our social and political mission for the good of our husbands, brothers, sons, and Uncle Sam. Now that the war has ended, we were once again focusing on the problems in our society. However, this inconvenience was not to be ignored by women any longer. A wave of women had decided to stand up to their own domestic culture and constructed a movement called the Women's Movement. This progressive movement would change the future of women's rights permanently. This movement was influenced by women to stop abiding by traditional gender roles that fit into the ideals of what women should be. And at that time, not many women had valid opinions in politics or figures to advocate their needs. In that moment, I knew I had to do something about these injustices. My name is Alice Paul, and I could not help but step into the scene. I attempted to change what the word suffrage meant for all of us. I remember hearing and reading those heart-wrenching articles of women with signs and at rallies getting arrested for picketing, and in my own circumstances even being punished for their rebellion. I never want anyone to go through what I went through. But throughout the course of American society, women had faced misogyny and the burning stigma of the male-driven world. However, after World War I, the movement advanced deeply to soon give us a suffrage right that would soon be the 19th Amendment. Although delayed, this was a triumph that would change how the world would function in the future. This truly was a successfully paved road in American history. But although all triumphs, there were tragedies and adversities in women in American history. They had to overcome them. But as this time of change inclined, women were putting themselves into the workforce. Their attempts had met them with the limitations and conditions that prevented the progressive cause. This is where American suffragists like me found their voice. We came to vocalize their expressions about public health care, social works, and the inability to vote. The 20th century reels in. The role of women in our society had begun to change drastically. We were working more, we were receiving substantial educations, and several states had even passed the bill of female suffrage. The Congress then passed the 19th Amendment saying that the rights of citizens in the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States on any state on account of sex. After being silenced and boxed into the stereotypes that once defined how the world viewed us, we were finally heard. We were finally seen. Although this does not mean we were where we needed to be in terms of equal society. We had broken the glass ceiling that would pave the way for the future generations of women that would extend straight upward to the sky and beyond. The amendment was then in place, stating men and women were now politically equal under the eyes of Congress. 8 days later, we began to see how the 19th Amendment could affect us forever. Now we, finally equal to men under the law, and had a chance in voicing ourselves in political issues. But the 19th Amendment had a big impact on the lives of women, besides just granting voting rights. When the 19th Amendment was created, women got more respected in society. Now that women were respected, it also gave women the right for better jobs and a better education. For example, women could practice in medicine and the sciences. We also felt more accepted in the world around us and continued to push the suffocating stigma of men's social dominance. Having the 19th Amendment passed wasn't just about giving us the right to vote, but it also aided us women to become equal as men in society and gave us the ability to vote on issues to improve their lives. This had a huge impact on the national agenda, including child welfare, women's health access, divorce and inheritance equality, labor reform, and more. Standing all in front of you today, I am without words to describe what relief and pride I feel when I look out into this crowd and see women with freedom and rights and a say in what career path they want to take, the education they want to have, and most importantly, a voice and opinion that is heard by the world and will never be silenced again. I have seen the ugly side of the world. I have seen the hate and unwillingness of a society to let go of an outdated, predisposed ideas that should have never been in place to begin with, all because of traditions that hid behind a fragile masculinity. I have been cursed at and spit on by those who did not believe in an equal opportunity for all mankind. Although I have seen these things, I am proud to share my experience growing up as a woman in the 1920s. I have become centered in the truth, which is tolerance. This progressive mindset was something that could have gotten me killed, but I did not care what it would take for women to be seen as equals by the rest of the world. This world was once sitting still on a stagnant status in the hands of men in power. What I have learned is that there is power in numbers, especially with a call for justice. I chose to not accept what I had been taught all my life, and because of that, direction of our future has forever changed. I am Alice Paul, and I would do it all over again.